So yeah, I've done mime plays about Jesus. I played Jesus. I usually do play Jesus on the mime plays. We did do one at Texas Wesleyan where we used, I believe, Luke. We chose the book of Luke. It was called Passion. I played Jesus. We did use some scripture and then much mime to show, kind of lead up to the crucifixion, to show. We started at the war that was going on at the time in Jerusalem when Jesus was born, but we kind of went right from nativity, which we didn't really show. Unfortunately, we only had so much time. So James Gilbert, who is in Los Angeles, he's an actor. He's been on Terriers. It's a show about police and dogs and things like that. He played a police officer, and he's been in, he also worked with Documentary Now, Bill Hader and Fred Armisen, who did Documentary Now. James Gilbert, I think he played many roles in it. He played one of the apostles, or a few of the apostles, probably more than likely, because we chose certain scripture. Brian Beck, who has passed away. Brian Beck was with me when we did Waiting for Godot. He played either Dee or Go-Go. I played Lucky. Charlie Baker also was in Waiting for Godot, but he wasn't really around us at the time when we were doing the Wesleyan, Texas Wesleyan stuff. Just Brian and James Gilbert was. And I played Jesus, and we did, my grandfather showed up too. He was blind at the time and asked me to heal him, but I said, unfortunately, we just study acting. But we did do the play, and we mostly focused on the adult Jesus Christ. So that it was kind of like there was a war going on. We did kind of like a huddle, like these battling, like we were miming swords, and it was all mostly done in mime. No real swords on stage and everything. It was just done in mime. So Jesus comes out from the war and from kind of like a huddle, and he's presented, and that was me. And then we went forward with that, touching upon each element or each section, all the way to Gethsemane, to the betrayal with Judas and the whipping, the scourging, and then of course the crucifixion, which we kept it pretty simple. I think we did show miracles. So we did the healing of the blind man, probably because my grandfather was there, but he couldn't see it, he could hear it. It's hard for a blind person to go to a mime show. But we did speak. We did use words. Brian chose the words to use. Brian Beck chose which words to use, and we both co-directed it. Me playing Jesus and Brian playing Judas Iscariot. Brian Beck. We also brought a piece of that to Gambier, Ohio, for Greg Goldston to look over. When we did it for Greg, we only used movement. So we used no words with Greg. We just used movement. Greg's a theater movement master. Also, he studied with Marcel Marceau, and so he helped us tweak things. Probably him and Nick Johnson did. And then, so, I think that's the order. I think that was the order of how we did Passion. I am probably switching it. We may have... No, I'm sure about it now. Texas Wesleyan, we did Passion there first, then we took it to Greg. And then Greg saw, and, not a lot of tweaking. They mostly enjoyed it. But then we were also participating with Greg's show, because Greg, back in the day, when we were all kind of in heaven, we got to work at Kenyon College. That's where Paul Newman went to. That's Gambier, Ohio. And Greg taught us Antonin de Cruz technique, which was taught to Marcel Marceau and also taught to Greg Goldston, who has been on Broadway. He's, you could say he's a Broadway mime star, if you call it a mime star. He's done work on Broadway with mime. And he's worked with Anne Hathaway. He's worked with everybody as a teacher. He's a teacher. Mostly works with no words. So we did do a mime in a park. I have sent mime work to Greg. Greg does teach, but you have to pay. But there was not a lot of comments on our passion play, which we brought to Ohio, there was a lot of reward. So we were met with just, that was just awesome. You know, they really liked it. And Brian was almost in tears because Brian helped direct it. Brian's no longer with us, he passed away. But Brian loved to play Judas Iscariot. They were like just floored, like, Brian is amazing. Yeah, he did good. It was mostly, we took all the words out of it and just did movement. Now, we could have laid down narration on top of it, but we were there for teaching. We were there for learning. And they liked the whipping part, the scourging, and the crucifixion part we just showed with the turning and hands out. It's very DeCru kind of statue. And it was like a passion play. You know, they've had them for centuries. And we were, you know, pretty happy about it. At the time, I was writing a play called Red. I would secretly go back to my little dorm room or my little room, and I would write Red. I lived right next to a guy that was studying to be on Bailey and Barnum Circus. So he was just trained to be a clown, or was trying to become one. So he was there to learn the technique. And then Brian also made mask. So when I would go visit Brian in his room, he'd be making mask, and the other clown guy would be eating like pesto. He just liked pesto. And then we also made masks and stuff like that, just on our free time. But it was mostly Etienne DeCru that we focused on, I think. And then it was some characters of Marcel Marceau. And then it was also to look at Greg Goldston's mime, like Phantom 309, which was kind of a rock mime. I call it a rock star mime. But we practice not jumping off the ground and not speaking. Not making sounds. Like a mime doesn't make like grunt sounds and things. That's not exactly mime. It's more like pantomime acting. A mime you can't hear. It's the art of silence, which Greg wasn't going around going, silence, silence, silence. You know, he wasn't like that. No, Greg was all smiles and liked to, you know, hang out at cafes and you know, American French kind of style. I really don't know. I mean, we were so busy getting to class, and I was jogging at the time. So I think I started there at about 177 and then left 157. Yeah. So it was a lot of work, a lot of sit-ups, maybe 1,000, a lot. A whole lot of sit-ups. I wouldn't say 1,000 at one time, but we also did sit-ups on our own. So we had our own workout. Then there was jazz. We learned a little bit of jazz, and then it was exercise. It's like an exercise thing. They had a pool there at Kenyon too. You could go to the pool and go swimming. But it was cool to be able to bring that type of mime, you know, and then get. You know, I still like to watch Greg's mime on YouTube, and then of course Marcel Marceau is amazing. But Marcel Marceau had to fight a war, or at least save, I think it was like 10,000 children from the Nazis to escape them, to get them to safe ground. And he had to do that first. Then once he conquered that and the war was over, he returned back and studied with Etienne DeCru, and then perfected the art of mime, or the art of silence, and I guess the art of mime, which can be used in the church. Me, you know, playing Jesus, at least in a mime play and also in a mime and talking play, I did think about the crucifixion, and I was taught some theology in 1st and 2nd grade at Baptist school. I went to a Baptist private school at 1st and 2nd grade. We were giving some theology on the matter, right? We were. Crucifixion was addressed in that early age. So the crucifixion didn't hurt Jesus. He was kind of like a Vulcan to it, you know. He wasn't a Vulcan, meaning pain didn't affect him, but he was hurt because God could not witness it. Jehovah could not see it. So there was a disconnection for a moment when he became sin, and we were forgiven. It was something that Jesus had to go through. God could not witness it, so a cloud, the sky became dark, so he couldn't see it for that moment. That hurt him, because he always wanted to be there with his Father. That's what we were taught in 1st and 2nd grade. So now Mel Gibson and all the rest, you know, they say different, but it didn't, he was beyond any type of flesh. Even though he wore a flesh suit, even though he was a man, you could not get him with the flesh. But when that cloud came over him, there was pain of separation from the Father. That hurt him deeply, I guarantee you. So yes, you can tell from Passion what we did, and we were called the Rag Carpet Theater Group. Brian Beck led it. He was the president, I was vice president. Brian wanted to focus on the crucifixion, but he also wanted to focus on the betrayal. So he wanted to focus on what Judas did. It wasn't like we went on a sidetrack and talked about Judas. We stuck to Luke, the book of Luke. But he wanted to focus on those two main things, the crucifixion, and well, first, the betrayal in the garden, that was to be focused on, and the crucifixion. We did bring war as part of it. There was a spiritual war as well as a physical war going on at the time between Israel and their enemy. That was going on at the time. We did focus on that war as well. We also focused on the healing of the blind and other miracles. And we stressed, I believe, some other things too. It was videotaped, by the way, so if you would like to see it, you would probably most likely have to hunt down Brian Beck beyond the grave, because I don't have a video of it. We did use my video camera. I might have to hunt for it. I don't know exactly what would happen to that copy, so I don't know. I may have turned it over to Brian. But regardless, it was for Texas Wesleyan. And then we did show it to Greg. I don't know if it was videotape with Greg. I talked to Greg about videotape. Greg goes, videotape, I travel. You know, those are the words. So, you know, we're going to pass the Jesus thing anyway. Greg, I think at that time we did do a show. So what happened with the mime camp is, I don't remember how many weeks it was, but at the end of the camp, we presented a show, which was very difficult to do. But Greg choreographed many of it with his other partners, Nick Johnson, I believe, or not Nick Johnston. He was at help, and then there was a few other. One was an ex-minister, and yeah, the help of Jesus. And there were other Christians there that were studying mime as well. We called them the Christian mimes, because at the time I was still in my wilderness stage when I did it. I was, you know, reading Antonin Artaud and was interested in you know, just learning the basics. Anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there. 848.10, 849.10, 4.5. So I got this at a teacher fair. That's the Fort Worth ISD administration building, or what was left of it. So since I had to focus on school and I wanted to graduate, I had to leave Wesleyan and go to UNT to graduate. We disbanded the Rag Carpet Theater Group probably close to 1996-ish, maybe around then. We did do another show, did Partners in Wonder at Hip Pocket Theater, and then Brian and I would work on our last performance for Waiting for Godot, which I believe Brian was one of the leads, and I was Lucky, one of the standout leads. It's kind of an ensemble piece. Written by Samuel Beckett, and Charlie Baker played either Dee Dee or Go-Go. I'd have to look at the newspaper clipping. Those are nicknames for the characters. And Rob Vasquez, who's a resident playwright in town, played Pazzo. And then we had an actor named Lane who played the young boy. Those are usually the characters, and Waiting for Godot, it's basically 4, but the young boy counts it as 5. There's actually 5 characters. in Waiting for Godot. And then I would go to California and I didn't see Brian again. Then I was told by Pete Gooch, I think this last year, that he had passed away in 2012. So that was the last time I saw of him. We worked together on all these projects from 1994 to 1990, barely to 97. And then we would reunite in 1999 for Waiting for Godot. I don't know if that was a 2000 production or not. I think that was a 1999 production. Hip Pocket would know. So almost a decade. Right, so this guy's real genius. This is basically like a sanitizer I had, I guess, during COVID that lost the top of it. I have about 10 of these. And some of them were given out for free for DoorDash and stuff, but not these per se. I think my mom gave me this one, but it was an organic hand sanitizer from Dr. Bronner's. But I lost the cap on it, so I'm gonna go ahead and throw it away right here. But I was gonna do a vlog and show all my different ones. I have this one, this one too, which is like, you can get them at wherever. I still use them. This was another one I got at a teaching fair. It's like a flat spray kind of thing. But I wanted to show you one of them that's kind of cool, if I can find it. This is it? No. Darn it. Yeah, it is. Yeah, this is it. Yeah, this is it right here. This is the DoorDash one. It says DoorDash on it. These were the free ones they gave out. They gave them in little boxes and stuff, sometimes two or three. It was more than this they gave out. This is just a sample. Well, it wasn't a sample. This is the size that you would get, but you would get them wrapped up. About 4 or 5 of them maybe. They'd come in the mail for free, no charge. They even gave you masks and things, like cloth masks and stuff. Just thought it was cool because it's like post-COVID. I wanted to keep it around and do something with it. As a DoorDash symbol, pretty cool back in the day. Now, one film I need to add to the list is The Mission with Robert De Niro and Jeremy Irons. I recognize movements, and I know that there's people in the church that are like that follower that wants to cut that ear off, and Jesus will just pick it up and heal that Roman soldier. Say, no, this is not the way. I'll surrender, which he does it constantly. So I've heard the crucifixion is constant. It's a constant thing. But so is God's will, and so is the story, you know. And the story goes on, and we interpret. And what I mean by this is ministers that come before the church and talk about conceal this and conceal that kind of thing. I don't want to get into detail. Jeremy Irons plays a character that brings the cross into battle and holds it steady. And that's all he does. Simply holds the cross. Robert De Niro plays a soldier fighting to his last breath. One that was already forgiven for murder, if you know what I mean. You got to see Robert De Niro in The Mission. It's a sin that he was not given Best Actor for that role. It is. It's nearly robbery. I don't understand it. I'd have to. We got some crazy critics in the Academy. There's no way that was not a Best Actor performance. Now, De Niro did get it for Raging Bull, and he did get it for Godfather Part 2. Well, and why not The Awakenings, right? So these were nominations that De Niro got. He is on my list as my favorite. So I have 3. I have Marlon Brando, Robert De Niro, and Gary Oldman. And then I remember his name now, and I never remember it when I do this, and I remember his name now. I do it on purpose. I'm going to get it right. David A.R. White. Sorry, David. David A.R. White. He's also a very steady, underrated actor that I think deserves attention within the community of the acting. He's in Hollywood. He's actually a legit actor, but he gets a lot of Puritan flicks productions, and I put him on as one of my favorites. There's different reasons, and I have the right to choose whoever I want. I would put Dustin Hoffman on there, and I'd put a bunch of others, Sean Penn and everybody else. I don't have room for it all. It doesn't allow me to. because you have to go through, I think it's Internet Movie Database Pro. You got to have a credit card and you got to go through. They only allow so much. So I was able to give a short bio on me and my favorite actors that I was going to fit. I didn't worry about directors. I only said actors. And The Mission is one of the reasons why Robert De Niro is on that list. And also because of his heart. I don't like to see him out there protesting. I know he has to stand for what he believes in. And listen, everyone's going to fight for their friends. But that's, you know, and listen, what I want to say about New York right now is don't be calling De Niro a wash-up, okay? His father was an artist. He dedicated his entire life to a craft that you wouldn't, I don't want to get on my high horse, but you wouldn't even begin to understand what De Niro has gone through. Robert De Niro, what he has gone through, and the suffering that he's gone through to portray something that you sit there and munch on popcorn and say, hey, this guy's pretty good. No, he's a genius, okay? Every day when De Niro was probably growing up and being schooled, all he heard was Marlon Brando's the best, Marlon Brando's the best, Marlon Brando, Marlon Brando, Marlon Brando, who happens to be from Irish descent. De Niro happens to be from Italian. I was raised knowing that De Niro was the best, okay? And Gary Oldman. I'm a big fan of Gary Oldman. I was raised, when I was in acting and on stage, I knew those guys were the best. And then I would go see something like The Mission, and even I am leaving the theater with tears and emotion and being affected. I don't like to see one of my heroes up there yelling at a bunch of people that sincerely care about property more sometimes than human life. That's what De Niro was trying to say, even though there's this political mask over it. De Niro was saying, don't put property over human life. Don't put money over human life. And I agree. And that happened in New York, and it upset me, and I immediately became upset because I don't know him. I haven't met him. I didn't get to meet Martin Scorsese. I didn't get to meet De Niro. I came close, and I probably would have asked for an autograph, which they see that as kind of, it's not really unprofessional. Some of the students do it. I've seen it. It was done with Samuel L. Jackson. Someone threw a Star Wars toy up there and got him to sign it because they're a student. And I chose, when I went there, to purposely not ask for autographs, to focus on the craft and what I could learn, not what I could collect. And what about the material as much as about the knowledge and the humanity and understanding of what we could get out of the actor studio and things like that. So I put my foot down. I was raised by a Republican family. My mom's a major Democrat. My father's side is they're Republican. They're Texans, but my mother, who lives in Maine, is a diehard Democrat. I'm stuck in the middle with the New Liberty Party. I just said, hey, I'll just go to the third party. I think my uncle's kind of the same. But what I mean is, when I see something like that, hey, come on, the guy's an artist, and you know he had to use the F-bomb and all that stuff. I immediately said, whoa, back off, because I know how those protests can get. Okay, so I wanted to lay that down. Also, with Gary Oldman, the reason why is because I think Gary Oldman explored acting in a risky way when he did it, and like Immortal Beloved and all those things are genius. He finally got it with The Darkest Hour. It took a long time. And then, of course, Marlon Brando, he's an icon genius. But the David A.R. White is because I went through a short period of watching nothing but pure flicks, and also appreciating people like Alex Kendrick and other people that stuck their neck out for the church and purposely edited things and could take a hit from the hard critics saying, you know, this is cheesy or corny. But in the same instance, they stuck by their guns and their friends and told a story that was clean and wholesome and went on to pure flicks, and it has affected me too. That's why I put David A.R. White in the mix, so that we can say, hey, there's movies out there that state that God's not dead, right? There's not just the gritty reality of humanity, which Jesus has showed us, but we're also realizing that God's not dead.